Good afternoon, live from Toronto on the GBKM network. Welcome to the Chat Up Show, the show where we catch you up with the chat up of our weekly headlines. I'm your host, Elizabeth Aloyde, and I hope that you are ready to chat it up with me today. Now, as always, you can keep up with the GBKM network in various ways. You can listen and watch live 24/7 at www.gbkm.fm or www.gbkm.tv, where you can catch up on any past shows you may have missed, check out our upcoming show schedule, like, share, comment, subscribe, all of that good stuff. You can check out our breaking news tab, and you can even check out our merch as well that's available for sale right now at www.gbkm.tv or www.gbkm.fm. You can also, alternatively, or whatever floats your boat, download our free app. It is 100% free and is available for iOS and Android devices right now. So you can go ahead and download the app so you can receive notifications every time we go live. You can get the same features as on our web radio station. So listen, watch live, like, comment, all of that good stuff. You can continue to read up on our breaking news on our breaking news tab. Check out past shows, upcoming shows, all of that good stuff. So again, you can download our free GBKM app for iOS and Android devices right now. You can also follow us on Instagram at GBKM Network and Twitter at GBKM Network. You can continue to watch us on Facebook and YouTube at GBKM Network, where you can also continue to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Now, today's topic is one that's been a topic of conversation for essentially since the idea of a vaccine came about during this pandemic. And since the start of the pandemic, we have essentially kept our borders closed. But there is some news regarding the border restrictions here for us in Canada and even across the globe. As we know, they're starting to lift up and ease as more people are becoming fully vaccinated across the world, and especially here in Canada. Now, the border had initially been closed to non-essential traffic and travel and required a 14-day quarantine for travelers allowed to enter the country. Now, we know that travelers that are currently allowed to enter are permanent residents, citizens, and people who are traveling for essential reasons. Now, in late February, we know the government mandated that travelers take a COVID-19 test upon arrival, and that air passengers spent a part of their quarantine in a mandated designated quarantine hotel. Now, this will continue on for passengers. However, the new restrictions that's been lifted is for those who have been vaccinated. All they need to do is take the necessary test upon arrival. Of course, you have to take a test before you arrive as well. And then when you get the test result, and then you quarantine while you wait for the test results for the test that you took upon arrival. And then once those results come back negative, you're free to go. You do not need to do the necessary 14-day quarantine. This is just a matter of 3 to 5 days to allow for the test results to come back upon arrival. So this is the new restriction that's been eased depending on your vaccination status. Of course, I want to reiterate that this is only if you have received your full 2-dose vaccination of the vaccines that are recognized here by Health Canada, and that is the Pfizer, the Moderna vaccines available right now. Of course, there's the AstraZeneca as well too, but those are only now being administered just for the second dose only for those who had already received a first dose. So these travel restrictions are coming because the Canadian population at least is being more vaccinated, receiving more vaccines, and we're heading towards a larger population being vaccinated here and even across the globe, as I mentioned before. So the government has not yet set a date for when these new restrictions or this ease of restrictions will go into place, but they're looking at around July. So in about a month's time, you'll start seeing when folks are coming back into the country. There's not that necessary 14-day quarantine period, and you only have to quarantine until you get your negative test results back once you're in the country if you are fully vaccinated. And if you are not fully vaccinated, then of course the same restrictions still apply as before. Now, with this idea that, travel restrictions are easing, people feel that, now we're sort of getting into the swing of returning to some semblance of normalcy. But how much of a normal life can we really return to if there are still folks who are choosing not to get vaccinated, not though we still don't know what the true extent of the condition of this pandemic is until we get some time to see what happens after a majority of the population has been vaccinated. I mean, we're starting to see less cases, yes, but we also saw this trend last summer when, the weather started getting warmer outside and we were seeing only double digits in daily cases for about a month period. I remember in August we were seeing double digit cases, and then as the temperature started to drop again and we were going into fall and winter, we saw those cases climbing, the number of cases climbing. So right now we're on a good downward trend of cases. We're seeing less and less daily cases here in our hotspot province of Ontario, and especially here in our hotspot city of Toronto. I don't know if we can really claim that proudly, but it is what it is. It's a fact. It is a hotspot. But we are seeing downward trends, so that is a good thing to look at. It's a good indication that hopefully, we will start returning to normal. But again, we know that all of our reopening is based on the fact of how much of our population is fully vaccinated. So right now, we are in our first stage with 60% of adults with at least one dose. We're over that now, of course, as more and more people are now opting for their second dose. So we're allowed to, our gatherings are up to 10 people outdoors. We can now, patio season is in full effect. There were a lot of us who made it outside on Friday when we were allowed to be outside. I was one of them. I was right there because I'm vaccinated, but I kept it safe. And I wore my mask and I made sure that I socially distance as much as possible, because we know that not everybody that is outside is fully vaccinated. Okay, there are some people who feel that they don't need to get a vaccination, but they also want to participate, if you will, in the ease of restriction. So this is a lot of things that are in the back of a lot of people's minds as things start opening up more. How will we be able to regulate who is vaccinated, who is not, whether it is safe or not to completely let go of the restrictions we've been holding on to for the year and a half now that we've been in the middle of this pandemic. And I say a year and a half because it took us until March to actually shut things down. Like, we knew about COVID before then. So it's been about a year and a half that we've been dealing with this pandemic now. People still are uncertain about whether we can really get into the full swing of things just yet. Not everybody feels comfortable ripping those masks off their face, going out and socializing with a bunch of strangers that they hadn't, been around and hadn't been in their core group for the last few months, especially here for us while we've been on lockdown in Ontario. So people are thinking, how can we make sure that everyone is safe but still be able to return to some semblance of normalcy? And that's where the conversation of vaccination passports come into play. Now, when we first began the discussion on COVID vaccines, there was a sense that folks felt almost pressured to take the vaccine in order to return to some form of normalcy. If we don't get vaccinated, we will not be able to go back to the activities that we were doing before the pandemic. So that's for the most of us, that's what we're thinking, that to be able to safely go back to life as we were before, being able to travel freely, not having to quarantine for the 14 days, not having to socially distance everywhere we go, not having to wear masks everywhere, not having certain things closed off and restricted from access from us. All of these things, we have to have them, we have to be vaccinated. Now, of course, there's the opportunity and the option to opt out of getting vaccinated. And of course, we're seeing now, though, that there's a majority of people who choose to get vaccinated. We're seeing a lot of people who want to be vaccinated. I mean, we're seeing it now here in Ontario. It's been kind of a struggle trying to get your second dose. If you've been trying to book online, it's taking a little bit longer. Doses run out quickly. We're hoping for more pop-up clinics to administer those second doses to folks who are waiting so they can be fully vaccinated and really, appreciates these new restrictions lifting. Now, as I mentioned before, we saw the trends of last summer where we started to see the cases decline, over time as we went on in the season of summer. And we're starting to see that now again. And people are feeling a little more comfortable, confident, if you will, to explore a little bit more, hanging out with people outside of your household, doing some more activities outside of your household with others, going out to patios, enjoying a drink in the sunshine, enjoying a meal with friends, even though you're only allowed to 4 people at a table right now, but doing these little things to get us into the groove of, getting back into the social routines that we had before. But it is still recommended that we still do make sure that we are taking the necessary precautions, because we do not know. But what we do know for now is that travel is also one of the things that are easing up. And there are countries across the globe that just cannot wait for tourists to return. And the way that they're preparing for that is putting in place these I don't want to call them restrictions, because they're not necessarily restrictions, but just putting in place some guidelines. That's what we're going to call them, to ensure that all travelers entering and leaving the countries are safe. And, we're not passing variants up and down like we were before. So there are a lot of countries now who are working on removing this necessary need for a 14-day quarantine period if you are fully vaccinated. Now, this is great news to a lot of travelers, because when you only have a 2-week vacation period in a year, and it's 2 weeks required quarantine, you don't want to waste that on just quarantining, and you can't even have a proper vacation. So now people are opting to get fully vaccinated so that they can travel internationally, enjoy their vacation to the full extent that they can without having that long days, 2 weeks of being stuck in a hotel somewhere, having to check up on your temperatures constantly, having to check in constantly. Like when you come back into Canada, you have to check in every day with the ArriveCan app. All of these things, people are sick and tired of having to do them. They want to get back to normal. So countries are saying if you are fully vaccinated, you do not need to do that. All you have to do is prove a negative COVID test within the time frame that they've required. Usually it's up to 96 hours. That's the maximum time frame that's been used in this last year, at least. And also, there are a lot of places, for example, the EU is working on this vaccination passport, which is essentially a technological thing, an app. It could be used through an app on your phone, through your wallet on your iPhone, if you have an iPhone, through the wallet app, where it's basically a code that you can scan to pull up all of your COVID information, is basically what it is. When you were last tested, what those results were, and if you've been vaccinated as well. So it's a simple system that folks can check to make sure that, they're in good health and they've taken the necessary precautions and they've adhered to the guidelines for wherever they're traveling to. And it's all this information that you have all there ready for you. Now, this isn't something new. We have apps that are already available specifically for the COVID situation. We have the COVID Alert app here in Canada, which is supposed to alert you when someone near you has, when you've come in contact with someone who's tested positive, because people are supposed to put in the keys that tells them, once they've received the positive COVID test results back, they're supposed to input the key so that it stays in the database. So now this is going to be a database where people can also state that their vaccination status. So when you're traveling, this is something that you're going to have to show, and show as proof that you're vaccinated. Now, this vaccination passport concept isn't entirely new. For those of you who know of the yellow card, which is your immunization records, a lot of the time there's some countries that you are required to get certain kinds of immunization and vaccines for before you're allowed to travel. I remember in 2013, I was traveling to Uganda, and I had to make sure that all of my vaccinations were in order using my immunization card to prove. It's like a little yellow booklet that essentially does literally look like a physical passport. This just states all of the vaccines you received, the dates and whatnots, and it's like a little medical record thing. So it's not a new idea that countries would require this new type of vaccine now. I mean, this was a global pandemic at the end of the day. Like, a lot of us like to live in our own bubbles. I understand that, and we feel that it's only happening to us a lot of the time, that life is only happening within our own area. But this was something that occurred across the globe, to everyone around the globe, and all countries across the board, for the most part at least, had to deal with travelers who were either trying to get back home or trying to get back to their loved ones in the middle of the pandemic. And now this is a new way, with these new, track and ensure that everyone who is coming in and out of each country is safe. Now we have a little I want to call special guest coming on to join us to discuss this topic here. We have Kenny, our producer, in the building.
Thank you for having me. I hope I'm not hijacking your show. But when it comes to the passport, I'm a little bit worried the way you're talking it down. You are saying it's just like the normal, like, yellow card, which You can say that, but what happens to the data collected? What is it used for? Why do I need a passport apart from a country passport? For example, I'm a Canadian. I think that should be sufficient for me to go around those countries that Canada is visa free. So my concern here is the yellow card or the vaccine passport, what, where, and who is the data with.
Right. And that is honestly the main issue here when it comes to privacy, that a lot of people feel this new technology is going to infringe on their privacy. It's going to take their data, whatever that may be, and use it for whatever data tracking we think that the government is doing to control us or take over. But the different companies that have been working on the technology to put this passport out, vaccination passport out in app form, have assured people that it isn't collecting your data. It isn't here to collect your personal data. All it is to say yes or no of whether you received the vaccine.
Sorry that I brought in. I'm sorry, guys. My voice is just there, but you may not see my face. When have they ever tell us that they are going to use those data? Number one. Number two, if it's an app, it becomes a situation of whether you turn your location off, you don't turn your location off, which data is it collecting. Now, if the people that create the data are able to save the data, and I'm traveling to Afghanistan, just for lack of example, now the Afghanistanians have access to the data because they maybe scan it and it's synchronized and they now have access to my data. How is the company that created that app going to be able to control it globally? What it's used for, and those information does get into the wrong hands. I think it's, in my opinion, this will do more harm than good.
And that's fair. I think that that's what a lot of people are worried about, especially, is that these companies, how do we know that this is just what they're using it for? And I think that just speaks to, general trust that we have in our society today when it comes to technology and privacy and data and all of these things, that generally there's a certain level of distrust and even conspiracy as to what's happening with all of our data that's being collected. But now I'm going to take from a specific company that developers are essentially stressing that there's minimal personal data that is kept on phones. So your phone, for when people are traveling, you use your wallet app on your phone, if you have one, for your boarding pass. That itself is scanned. That has your name, middle, last, whatever information. It has where you're traveling to, all of this information. It's scanning through your phone. They're only going to pick up what they need, right? Because it's using a QR code to pick up the necessary information that is needed. That is what this vaccination passport is going to also do. Specifically, the one that the EU is working on right now is going to be scanned through an encrypted QR code, wherein the data that is collected is the data that is encrypted on that code. Now, this is getting into technology that, I'm not an expert in this, but this is the explanation that's been given by various companies and various people who have been working on this technology to put out the vaccination passport, is essentially saying that, no, we're not here to infringe on your privacy. It is just another way, just like with your passport, that itself, it gets scanned when you go to the airport too. This is just an added thing, an added piece of document that maybe it's like your visa that you have to show, that they also have to scan and make sure is they have to authenticate. This is just an extra thing. For example, the COVID testings that people have been doing while they've been traveling during this pandemic, that is also included in the data that will be scanned and used. So it's not that they're really scanning your phones for your personal data, according to them. Now, again, it is early days in this whole thing. The vaccination passport isn't even globally available yet. They're still working on it. Even here in Canada, we're still our government is still working towards, figuring out of whether this will be something that will be open to the public or not. It's still early days in this situation, but when it comes to mining for data, that's not what they're saying they're doing, and that there's not enough of that information on our phones anyway, which is what they would be using as the median to scan to check your vaccination status.
Well, look, let me comment this way. Okay. I agree with you, but you got to look at the antecedents.
Yeah.
You have to look at, for example, there are some social media giants that was bought over by other social media giants.
We won't talk about who.
And the whole thing Now you go on your whatever you go, you now find out that your information, there's this tracking cookie. So I think in a broader way, it may be solving a problem. Okay, I don't want to take away from that. It may be solving a problem, but I also believe that at the same time, it may also be creating another problem that we may not have solution for. So for these reasons, no matter what we do, I know we're not going to be able to stop it. We're not going to be able to tell them not to do it. However, I do believe that we still have a role to play. We still have a voice here, something to say.
I think, of course, and this is exactly why I wanted to have this topic of discussion on the Chat Up Show today, because I think that this is something that it's in the back of our minds, but we're not having this public, open discussion about it. We're doing it with our friends and our families who probably think the same way as us, you know? If our friends and family are all fully vaccinated and you're hanging out with people who are fully vaccinated, you feel comfortable being around them, and they think that, you know, this is the best way to be safe. Now, when I'm talking about this vaccination passport, we've only been discussing it in the context of travel. We haven't even touched on the other potential uses for it, which I think is kind of what you were kind of gearing towards as well, Kenny. Not so much just for, you know, the data aspects, the privacy aspect, but more so from the control aspect of it. That there are certain activities that maybe we won't be able to do unless we have this vaccination passport and we can prove our vaccination status. For example, sports stadiums. Right now, the New York Yankee Stadium has put out a statement saying that if you have a valid ticket and you are not able to show either a negative COVID test result or your vaccination status, you will not be allowed in the stadium.
Now, that's just one. That's one. Where I have problem, where my argument is coming from is this.
Right.
Sometimes they give you the minimum information just to allow it approved. Now, once it's approved, you hardly will know when it's updated to now collect data and so on and so forth. I think that if there should be something like that, as a matter of fact, I think it should not be approved at all. I think we also have freedom to take the vaccine, freedom not to take. Now, the biggest question that I want to ask is that if you are vaccinated, like you take the vaccine already, the first and second dose, some people will say that you may still contact COVID, but it won't be harmful, right? So you are protected, let's put it that way. So why do I need a passport? So if I don't have a vaccine and you have a vaccine, we're in the same flight, you are still protected. Why do you need a passport?
To prove that you are not the one that would be putting others in harm's way.
So in other words, you are kind of getting to the update now. They are going to update it and say that if you are not the one somebody else gave you, there may be a penalty for you passing COVID around.
Well, I mean, right now there is. Some countries are even looking at like putting on a manslaughter charge for someone who has COVID and then passed it on knowingly, of course. But you know what? Let's hold on to that question for a really quick second, and we're going to take a really quick break, and we'll be right back.
Do you want to be your own boss and make income or extra income with flexible schedule? Welcome to Keenan Courier. Keenan Courier works as a marketplace platform connecting customers who need something delivered with drivers that are willing to serve them. Courier with any vehicle, better trip allocation, and cash out your earnings whenever you want. Download our driver apps today to sign up.
My name is Karo, and I'm currently a project coordinator. I took the project management course. I learned a number of things, one of which was interview skills. I learned about the Agile framework and how that's very different from the waterfall model of project management.
At Top Run Consulting, the key unique area that we try to focus on is not to just impart certification knowledge, but the application of real-world tools.
Back in June 2017, I did the business analysis course at Top Run. I learned the basic and advanced skills and tools to be successful in business analysis fields.
Hello and welcome back to the Chat Up Show. I'm your host, Elizabeth Oloidi, and today we're discussing whether vaccine passports should be required in multiple establishments and different types of establishments. Now, before we went on the break, I was discussing with my little guest co-host here, Kenny, about what it would mean.
I'm here.
We were discussing about what it would mean if this vaccine passport became, globally used and not just used for travel, that it could potentially be used for other reasons. And I brought up the example of New York's Yankee Stadium putting out a statement that if you do not have if you are a valid ticket holder and you do not show a negative COVID test result or your vaccination status, you will not be allowed inside the stadium. Kenny, you felt some type of way about this and about the broader idea that these vaccine passports will not just be used for, making sure people who are traveling are fully vaccinated, but used to further control the population.
In my opinion, that's just a gateway, because before you know it, that app, if approved, it's going to be able to retain credit card information, retain passport number, retain all this information where you just travel, you just walk into the airport, you're ready to go. It's the direction, in my opinion, that we're going.
Is that so bad, though?
That's the direction in my going. And I just believe that this is a gateway to introduce this. And I'm very, very worried because there are some track records. There's some track records that you may, if you are a student of history, you will see that there are so many things. And not only that, when it comes to a global data collecting, you know how hard it is in this world of terror that we live to control the global data, because every country have their law. And whether you like it or not, they can sign an agreement with the United Nations today, and tomorrow they can violate it at my detriment. And that's my worry.
So you feel that this isn't to keep people safe? Because let me pose this scenario. So actually, in fact, there was a survey recently done. This was the Smart Traveler Survey conducted by the Travel Health Insurance Association of Canada. They found that 14% of Canadians are not interested in getting the vaccine. And among those 14%, about 20% would lie about it if vaccines were a requirement for travel or entry into large events. Is that not a worry to a lot of people? That there's no way to regulate?
First of all, if you're already protected, right? So it's my risk. Let's take it from there. You have phase 1, whatever, second dose, whatever dose you have, and I didn't have. Let me bear my risk. Number 1, freedom of right, charter of right. Number 1. Number 2, if people can go as far as lying, that can be perceived as breaking the rules, the laws, and so on, because you don't really break the law, you appeal it, and so on. You cannot break it. However, we all should have the right to coexist based on our belief or our ideology. If I do believe that it's not going to be something that is good for me, then I shouldn't be coerced indirectly or directly to take it. A lot of people are persuaded directly or indirectly to taking it. For example, conditions like you can't fly, conditions like you can't go to school, conditions like you can't do that. They are kind of, I would say, for lack of better example, asked to do it under duress. And I don't feel it should be like that. I feel that if you are protecting somebody and the person is already protected, the one that chooses not to be protected, leave them alone. Secondly, I think that the world is smart enough to derive another way of tracking who has it. I think the world is. Why don't they just come with a central system like the airlines are using, whereby as soon as your name is punched, they know you have it or not. Just a checkbox, yes or no.
But that's what they're proposing with the vaccine passport.
But by the time I have an app on my phone, you know what app is? App has the ability to listen to your conversation. It has the ability to take you video when you don't even want. It have algorithm. It can capture.
So wait, what you're saying? So wait, what you were suggesting is that when I get to the airport, I myself would be the one to check yes or no.
No, they should have. I'm just saying.
Okay, they should have a system.
A system whereby they just say vaccinated or not vaccinated.
Right.
The same way you verify passport. The same way you verify, for lack of word, terrorists. If you are a terrorist in Australia, you can't get to Canada. Before you arrive, Canada already know you're coming. So why would they not use it? Why do I have to carry app that will listen to my conversation, see what I'm doing with my wife inside the house, with my children inside the house, whatever I'm doing? I'm not comfortable with that.
So maybe it's the terminology. Maybe it's not an app though.
No, whatever technology is, first of all, on-body technology is what I don't want. In my bedroom, technology is what I don't want. Save it in your server. Let me give you the data. As soon as I have the first dose, put it in your server, broadcast it to wherever you want to broadcast it. That's about it. I don't want an additional spying device, something that's going to be spying me. I don't care if you call it a barcode. I don't care if you call it an app. I certainly do not want to settle for that.
I mean, a lot of people agree with you. They feel that this is just another way for the government to then control our every move and make sure that we're, living within their guidelines, as I put it before.
Look, how can the government tell you now? I'm just digressing a little bit.
Yeah.
Oh, you have 1 billion people. Let's take a country in Africa. This country have 1 billion people. They are projected to have 20 million in the next 10 years. They are not God. How did they know it? Because of things like this. So I'm not against it. I just think everybody should have equal rights. If you want to take vaccine, first dose, second dose, third dose, fifth dose, keep dosing yourself. If I don't want, I should allow equal rights.
But when you think that now, because this risk of COVID hasn't disappeared, we're just in the early days of getting people vaccinated. We still don't know long term what it's going to look like in terms of whether it's going to be like the flu where you have to get a re-up every once in a while, or if it's like, this is what's going to stop another pandemic from happening 5 years down the line. We're still unsure. Scientists have said and researchers have said over and over that it's going to still take us a few years to really see the effects of A, getting people vaccinated, and B, just what we're left with after that. So we're still in the early days. We still don't know. But for now, these guidelines and these restrictions are being put in place just because not everybody is fully vaccinated, but we want to start reopening, start getting people into the swing of some level of normalcy. So for right now, wouldn't it be necessary to have these kind of controlling things in place just for now?
If you ask me, I think the world has enough intelligence to have better ways around it. I'm not against or for vaccine. I'm just saying that there should be a better way. I don't want another app that's going to be listening to me and my wife in the bedroom. Yeah. I don't want another app that's going to be seeing how I'm dealing with my children or whatever I'm doing. I certainly don't want that. And that's why I'm saying, in my own submissive opinion, that the government, if they want, they are smart enough, they know what to do, they know how to keep it real. So I certainly do not think it's on my interest, on my best interest, for me to give you my data and then you track it. Remember, there have been stories of apps that are live even when your phone is off. Some people have to turn their laptop off, remove their battery, put a tape in the webcam for them to even have a peace of mind. Yeah. So this is, to me, in my opinion, I'm not against, I'm not for, but I think if we're not careful, our privacy may be outrightly be invaded.
And there's some people who feel that with this, that they are doing taking your laptop battery out of the wall, putting tape over the camera, that having this vaccination passport is a way to protect themselves as well, an extra step.
How?
By, making sure that they're not interacting with someone that might or they might not put someone at risk, and even vice versa. You never know. Just because you're vaccinated doesn't mean you can't get COVID. That's not what we're saying. So
that's another discussion.
That's another discussion on its own, but it also pertains to
So now
this
that's
as well.
also say that if you are saying I must take COVID, you are not guaranteeing me to take it, but I must take it and I must follow the rule. The whole thing is just for me, it's just in disarray. The thing is not going to keep me from taking it, but I must take it, and my privacy must be like. Through some light,
okay, so then maybe it's not a virtual passport. Maybe it's back to those yellow cards. You just add the COVID vaccine in there, and for the next year or so, you're gonna have to travel with that immunization card a lot more.
I can settle for that a little bit. I can settle for that, but anything that is geared to app and other, I don't know about it. I'm not comfortable at all, and I'm sure a lot of people will disagree. Some people may agree, But in my opinion, I do not think it's this time that we should be adding more app to app. Nowadays, you see people even saying that their plasma TV is even recording them. Now, we're in an era whereby you are watching your TV is watching you. So you are asking me now. So it's crazy in my opinion. Imagine that you are in your living room watching your TV, and your TV is watching you.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people would agree with you on that. I mean, as I said before, there's already the worry and the fear of this controlling of this voyeurism, through our technology that a lot of people
But
don't
let me
feel
quickly
comfortable
put this
with.
out there. I'm not saying that people shouldn't take vaccine. Let's get that straight.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying that we should be smart about it, how we do it. I think it's safe to protect each other, protect our children, make sure that it's good. At the same time, I'm not trying to suck and blow at the same time, but I'm also saying that it's good to also allow me to preserve my rights, my chartered rights, freedom of speech, and other stuff. One thing that a lot of people say, sometimes there's freedom of speech. We don't know if there's freedom after speech. That's where the problem is. Yes, there's freedom of speech. Is freedom after speech guaranteed?
Well, I mean, I can say for sure you're not free from consequences of said freedom of speech.
Well, that becomes not a freedom. Because, you know what I'm saying? So, overall, on a more serious note, it's good to be vaccinated if it's what you like. I think there should be room for people that decide not to. And there shouldn't be that rigid that you can't travel. What if I have to travel to see my loved one because I'm not vaccinated?
Well, no, they're not saying that you can't travel. It's just that you can't travel as freely. It's that you still have to do the 14-day quarantine period. You still have to get your COVID testing done. You have to take all these steps, which COVID testing is
Elizabeth,
like free
what
a
you're
lot
not
of the
understanding is that, of course, I told you, it's a gateway.
Yeah.
There are going to be updates, rollouts. It's just like you have an app. It's going to be updating.
No,
now they're
fully.
going to be adding stuff to it without your knowledge. Today you have the app now. Tomorrow you can only work in Ontario. Next tomorrow you work only in Canada. The other time you work globally. The other time is breaking news. You can take your credit card now. You don't need to carry your credit card information. You just need to scan the app. Everything is good.
No, but that's already Apple Pay. We already have these
breaking
things.
news. You don't need to carry your passport number. It's in there already.
We have
Before
these
you know
things.
it, the vaccine app will have all your information, date of birth, date of death, everything will be in it, and then you're done.
You see, okay, but there are two different school of thoughts when it comes to this. To one person, that sounds like efficacy at its highest level. Like, that sounds so efficient. Why do I have to carry all these different documents? Why can't I have it in one place where you just scan one thing and it gives you everything that you need to know from the border to the doctor's office?
Can I ask a question? Will you settle for this analogy? Keeping your eggs in one basket. Think of it. Will you settle for that?
To have all your information in one place?
Yeah, your eggs in one basket. So if that egg crash, what's gonna happen? If that basket crash, all your egg crashed. Is that what you're settling for?
It's not your originals. It's just the information that's necessary to
nowadays,
travel.
your original is useless. Just the information that's useful.
Well, then.
The original is just the
Well,
paper.
where were it's your information. You're going to lose it for yourself.
So what we are
you
saying
have
is that
amnesia.
it's not even the original or fake. The availability of that information to the public domain and how secure it is, how is it monitored, how can we trust those that are in custody of those data is what we're talking about here.
Fair. How can you trust them? We don't know yet. We don't know. We don't know. That's what we can say. We can actively say we do not know yet.
For those that go to church, the Bible said prevention is better than cure.
But you don't think that this is a way to prevent a further, a pandemic lasting another 2 or 3 years? Because the governments were criticized, and I'm saying the governments, because it was across the globe. Governments were criticized for not acting quickly enough. So now they're trying to put something in place before they start easing up these restrictions that would be there as a guideline, as a boundary to ensure that people are safely returning to some level of normalcy.
So as God may have it, I agree with you to a degree. I agree with you in part.
Just not the technology
yes.
part. Yes.
So as God may have it, if you have first and second dose, you are protected. You may not die if you get it, right? Let's believe that that's what they're telling us. That's what they're telling us, right? That's fine. So that means to say that you're in good hands.
Like all states.
Like all states. So me, I'm not in good hands, and it's by choice, for example, right? So allow me to be. day your day, make I day my day. Let everybody on their own side, like.
See, but if you daying your day impacts me daying my day.
How is it impacting you?
Wait, because, for example, say you have chosen to be fully vaccinated. I have chosen not to be fully vaccinated, right? And I contract COVID for whatever reason. It's still a chance that you could also get it from me. It's inconveniencing you at that point. So if I choose, I don't want to have to pick and choose and guess, do the guesswork of knowing whether the person who is at this concert next to me is fully vaccinated or not, because at the gate, they check if your vaccination status and they require you to do certain levels of things. So if you are vaccinated, you can be out socializing, no physical distancing, hopping from place to place, don't have to wear your mask. But if you're not fully vaccinated, you have to wear your mask. And now everybody knows you're not vaccinated because you're wearing your mask.
So, okay, my point I'm making here is that I agree with you again in part. It's good for measures to be taken. But, okay, let me set the example for you. In Canada, there's freedom of movement.
Yeah.
Okay? But in that chartered right that there's freedom of movement, not in my bedroom. I have to permit you to come. No matter if you're a police, you have to have a warrant. So is there freedom of movement in Canada? Yes. But is there some limitation? Yes. So what I'm saying is that you can be as free as you want. Don't impede on mine. Don't impose yours on mine. So I think there should be two parallel lines that doesn't touch. Everybody should respect their lane. If I decide not to take, I should be allowed to leave. If you decide to take, you should be allowed to leave. I think the technology we have enough is, we are smart and it's sufficient. We have enough brains on this planet Earth to make things happen, which they're already doing. So there are better ways to get around these things. Once again, I 100% absolutely disagree with, first of all, any technology that is going to be introduced to track the COVID patient or the COVID, should I call it? I'm not sure if I'm using the right word. Anybody
the vaccination
yeah.
status.
I'm 100% against that. That's because anything that is not in your hand, only God knows where it ends.
But in the scenario that I brought up, right, would you then say it's fair that everyone can go, do these activities that we were doing before the pandemic? Everyone can go to these large events and concerts and festivals. It doesn't matter what your vaccination status is. They shouldn't have to check it through an app, But there are certain restrictions and guidelines put in place. For example, people who aren't fully vaccinated still need to wear their masks.
So why don't you do this? If you are not fully vaccinated, to the left, to the right, why don't you do that? Let everybody leave. Why don't you say the east side of the stadium is for people that don't have vaccine, the west side of people that have it? And why don't you do that?
In a perfect world.
Why don't you create it in a different way? Why do you have to have a TV that I'm watching that is watching me on my phone? Why do you need that? I think it's absolutely, the world should reject that. We have enough devices, Elizabeth, that is watching us. We have enough devices. Right now you have pens that video. You have Jericho, you have rings that video. Everything is a recording device as we speak. How many can we contain?
So, Kenny, what you're suggesting is a form of segregation.
I'm saying that will even be more preferred than you asking me.
Do you though? Do you think that would be more preferred?
The word segregation that you are using,
I know, to me, it's a buzzword.
To me, you are it's a little bit exaggerated.
Yes.
I'm just saying that you're separating those that are vaccinated versus those that are not. That's all I'm saying. But if you want to say segregation, well, whether you like it or not, segregation will always exist. The fact that you need an app, you are allowed to do some settings. I didn't have vaccination, I'm not allowed. It's also segregation. It will be there.
So people should just be allowed to come, but you keep, folks who are vaccinated or unvaccinated in a different area than folks who have done the steps to protect
some people listening may disagree with me or watching. You can comment if you want.
Please do.
Yes, because I think that the old school way is the best way around this very one, not on every level,
not everything, but
on
this
very
one.
I do believe the old school way is I just told you there are people. I was reading some article the other day. Now I don't know the source if it's correct, But these guys are getting busted because their plasma TV is watching them at home. So you went to the store, purchased a TV, you're watching maybe GBKM TV on your screen, but your TV on the back end, the webcam is on. They're watching you and your loved one at home. We have enough gadget, guys, that is already watching. If only you know, we have enough gadgets that is already watching us.
So there's no way that technologically we can do what you're saying without the physical of separating people. You don't think there's a way we could do that?
That's one way, and there could be other more smarter ways. There could be other more smarter ways. There are people that get paid $200,000, $300,000 a year.
This out.
They get $500 per hour to think these things. I am only an on-air person now, and I'm just saying my mind. Those guys that are making that bag of money every hour, every minute, they should go to their thinking tank room and then come with solutions. That's why the solution. The solution they are coming, in my submissive opinion, is detrimental to my rights.
Yeah.
It's detrimental to my freedom. That's where I have a problem here.
I mean, right now they're not saying that it's mandatory. But I
told you it's a gateway.
I know, and I completely understand where you're coming from it, because they're saying that you don't necessarily have to, but if you don't, this is what you're going to miss out on. Is essentially what's happening. It's the same with getting a vaccine. You don't necessarily have to. The government is not forcing you to get a vaccine, but our reopening plan based on vaccination rates and levels in the population.
Now, one thing you are not also saying, there are more to this. When we started the pandemic, stores were giving out masks for free. Now you go into stores, they want you to buy. The other day, they want me to buy 2 masks for $1. I'm like, what for? Why will I spend $1 for 2 surgical masks? So now, and I'm not getting a raise. Business is nothing is going. So the whole thing has to be, I mean, nobody has experienced this before. We had to handle it the best we can.
Yeah.
Now that things are settling, I think we should remold it to fit what benefit everybody. At that point, why it was a hot pot, we had to handle it the way we did, and I'm not discrediting that. But at this point, we can't go on that route anymore. We need to settle down and say, okay, now that the dust has settled, we have flatten the curve. We move past that. Now that the dust is settled, we can see clearly how do we efficiently, accurately tackle this. One, to protect all parties. Be it those that are vaccinated, those that are not willing to. They're all citizens.
But they can't please everyone, though. Let's be honest.
So who gave them the right to please the other one side then?
Because it's the majority. At the end of the day, they're going to go towards the majority. Like
because
if majority
they're bullied to, because they are compelled to.
But if the majority of the population is getting a vaccination in the government's hands,
how do you justify the number when people, for lack of better example, are bullied to take it? You can't go to grocery. You can't fly. You can't do this unless you take it.
At the end of the day, it's your choice, though.
How is it your choice when you are bullied to do it?
It was your choice. There are people who have been bullied to take the flu shot. They've never taken the flu shot. There are people who are bullied to take the measles. They never.
Now you are talking about resistance. Everybody
but
don't have.
But this is a form of resistance.
No, everybody don't have the same levels of resistance. What I'm saying is that I'm talking about a community and environment where there's zero resistance free. When there is resistance free, where you don't have that option to resist or not to resist, where it's equal balance on both aisles. We want to eliminate the word resistance. Now, if there is no resistance at all, what will be the percentage? If there was nothing to push people to take it, what would be the percentage? Me and you, we went to cover one of the pop-up stations. We saw a lot of people there. They were all happy. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I myself, I am vaccinated. Let me put it that way. But in the other way, you must also think for the others. And sometimes you put yourself on the other people's shoes and say, okay, let me step aside and try and be the devil's advocate. How are they feeling?
But at the end of the day, if you're not, you said that people who are vaccinated, they're protected, quote unquote. People who are not vaccinated are not protected. They are at higher risk of contracting the virus. Yes. Scientifically speaking, according to science, we can't deny science. People who are not vaccinated with the vaccines that they've, been rolling out are not protected the same way that folks are. They are at higher risk of having COVID and dealing with the complications that come after COVID. Because let's not forget, this isn't just a 2-week flu thing and then it leaves your body and you're not dealing with it.
You're not creating room. Sorry to butt in. You're not creating room for some people. Some people are saying that they want to see if me and you that took the vaccine will be alive next year before they take.
Fair.
And they're that's fair enough.
Yeah, that's fair.
So but why do you not put me like things that I'm alleged that I'm entitled to because of my opinion or my stand. I'm no longer eligible.
But isn't that for your safety and your health?
How?
Because a vaccinated person can give you COVID and you will come out worse off in the end because you're not vaccinated, according to the science.
So what happens to my freedom of my chartered right?
But, okay, yeah, no, but what I'm saying is you have every right to choose not to be vaccinated, but know at the end of the day that you need to take precautions to take care of yourself. So it's not that you could just be out here willy-nilly thinking that you're completely fine because everyone else around you is vaccinated, is where I'm trying to get to. That I think that a lot of people also need to think about is that you don't have to get vaccinated.
Before I leave
100%.
the show, let me ask you one question.
Okay.
Don't you think it's fair to allow those people that have a different opinion than the government or than you and I, don't you think it's fair to allow them to also coexist with full benefit?
Full benefit, I think that's living in a perfect world. I don't think you'll ever get to full benefit.
Guys, I rest my case.
I just don't think that realistically speaking, there's a way that people, when you know the risk at hand, you would even want to make the choice to go out and be like publicly out there like that. But anyway, this was an interesting conversation. Of course, we're definitely going to be looking through your comments to see what a lot of you have been saying about your opinions regarding this topic. This is still early days, as I mentioned before. We're still in the early days of the vaccine even rollout. Not 100% of our populations across the world or even here in Ontario right now have been fully vaccinated. So we're still seeing as things are progressing, how things are going on. We're still in the middle of the pandemic. It hasn't completely gone and it's not over. But we have to think about what it really means as we get closer to that light at the end of the tunnel, as we get closer to reopening, as we get closer to freedoms being, given back, restrictions being lifted, us being able to go back to the same activities at the same capacity as we were doing them before the pandemic with this new now vaccinated, unvaccinated situation, how we're then going to be able to track it in these next few years as we're coming out of this pandemic. This is a topic of conversation that's been going on for a while, and I'm glad that we were able to bring it to the Chat Up show today and that we're able to chat it up with you guys. Now, with that does conclude our show for today. As always, you can keep up with the GBKM network in various ways. Shout out to our producer, Kenny, for coming on the show and voicing his opinions, very, very valid opinions. With that, continue to watch us right here on the GBKM network, where we continue to voice our very valid opinions 24/7 at www.gbkm.fm or www.gbkm.tv. You can also download our free app available for iOS and Android devices. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter at GBKM Network, and the same on YouTube and Facebook at GBKM Network. You can follow me, your host, on Instagram and Twitter at TIS_Liz_O. And I will chat with you the same time, same place next week. Take care.
The bad news is that everyone is a potential victim, but the good news is that everyone is a potential solution. Sensitize the masses to sanitize, keep a social distance and quarantine. Stop!
The coronavirus is sweeping over mankind.
Everybody must be alert. It's a global pandemic we can never take for granted. Kila mtu must be alert. It's a matter of life we can never take for granted. Discipline and personal hygiene, and make sure you regularly wash your hands. Keep a distance from everyone. Report anything like a symptom. Serious fever is a symptom. Dry cough is a symptom. Walkway tamula is a symptom. Itchy eyes and flu is a symptom.
Wikumo butabusiga wejemu batanalwala ulago moyo gwegwanga labira kidale abasinga bafudde okuwewala kisingako bujjanjaba. The coronavirus is sweeping over mankind.
Everybody must be alert. It's a global pandemic we can never take for granted. Kila mtu must be alert. It's a matter of life we can never take for granted.
The coronavirus is sweeping over mankind.
Everybody must be alert.
to be your own boss and make income or extra income with flexible schedule? Welcome to Keenan Courier. Keenan Courier works as a marketplace platform connecting customers who need something delivered with drivers that are willing to serve them. Courier with any vehicle, better trip allocation, and cash out your earnings whenever you want. Download our driver apps today to sign up. Do you want to be your own boss and make income or extra income with flexible